They kicked him from the party for being useless. After all, who needs a translator in battle? Turns out, demons do. He does not tame, but connects two worlds. Now, with monsters, misfits, and a half-demon girl at his side, he's building a new team, one they'll never see coming. Can the power of words make him the strongest of all? Let's find out. A long time ago, a group of brave heroes joined the fight against monsters. And even though they were enemies, they united against the common evil. They were known as the Legion. Their leader was Shion, the translator of all that exists. This is the story of him and his comrades. Someone asked Shion for forgiveness and said that he had to exclude him from the group. Shion asked why. Didn't they agree to become high-ranking adventurers together? The man Shion was talking to sharply answered that the MC himself knew perfectly well why. In his condition, he was no match for them. Comrades must be strong heroes. The man Shion was talking to was the leader of the Argonauts, Jason. Shion was indignant and said that he was honestly trying to be on par with the others because they were his childhood friends. Jason said that Shion's gift is not suitable for teamwork and asked him to think about it. The witch of the Argonauts group named Medea told Shion to leave. She said that with his strength, he was nothing more than a burden to them. She asked him to remember the quest where the protagonist couldn't hit the troll. Shion agreed, but said that he had done a good job of being bait. Shion realized that the trolls weren't the only reason. This was true for all battles. If you think about it, he really had never landed a single decisive blow in all this time. It wasn't because he neglected his training, he simply couldn't surpass Jason in swordsmanship. He couldn't use Medea's high-ranking spells, and recovery magic didn't come as easily to him as Asu. With a gift like his, one could only dream of progress. Medea said that from now on, they were going to raise the team's rank to A. They wanted to make Iason a hero. Medea asked him to understand that with his skills as a translator, he wasn't right for them. Shion exhaled and said, "That's how it is." He realized that his opinion was of little interest to anyone. The protagonist asked if Asa had been warned about this. Jason answered of course, but he checked with Medea. Medea replied that it was a unanimous decision. Medea thanked Shion for his cooperation. The protagonist asked Jason not to take everything on his shoulders, and Medea to look after him. Medea replied that she would always be by his side. Jason mumbled that he did not want to listen to such nonsense from Shion. Losers should leave silently. He reminded Shion to return all the money and things. MC replied that he knew about it and would bring everything to the guild later. There is a whole community of adventurers who have many different duties. Some conduct research, some raid monsters, some collect resources, and much more. Among adventurers, there is a ranking system. E apprentices, D beginners, C newbies, B elite, A heroes, S legend. In order for adventurers to reach S rank, they need to perform some feat at the level of saving the world. That's why they often stop at the level of a hero, from whom no less is usually expected. Shion was sitting at the bar and drinking. The bartender said that the protagonist had had enough, but Shion asked for more. On the way home after the bar, MC thought that the Argonauts B squad, from which he was expelled, was one of the most famous and the closest to moving up to A rank. Together with his childhood friends, Jason and Ace, they left their home village. That's when they first began training, fighting even the weakest goblins. Sometimes he had to restrain Jason's ardor. Later, Medea joined them. Thus, a full-fledged team began to form. But Shion's progress seems to have reached a dead end, and the reason is in his gift, which he possesses. A gift is an ability that one day awakens in a person. Awakened ones usually live in accordance with their gift. Perhaps his life would have turned out differently if he had not been an adventurer. Things could have turned out differently if his gift had suited the team. Adventurers Guild. Shion opened the doors and entered the guild. Noticing him, one of the adventurers asked another if it was Shion who was kicked out of the Argonauts. Another adventurer replied that he was kicked out after all. Someone laughed that the translator was in an elite group. Someone said that he hoped that now Shion would understand that he was kept out of pity. Another replied that no one doubted it. A girl shouted at the adventurers to stop picking on each other, and asked everyone to leave. That girl was Angelina, an employee of the Adventurers Guild. She greeted Mr. Shion politely. Angelina said that she heard that he was supposed to come by and offered to talk. Shion handed over the money and items belonging to the Argonauts. Angeli thanked MC and said that he can rest assured that everything is in good hands. She said that forcing him to return such trivial things is complete nonsense, and suggested that he report it to the group for not being up to his rank. Sean said that he does not want to admit it, but the squad is right that when it comes to battle, his abilities are useless. He is only strong enough for D rank, and that is for working alone. Angelina did not agree with these words. From what she saw, he is worthy of occupying C rank. Alone or not, it does not matter. If he does not mind, then she can recommend him to some B rank team where they are no worse than the Argonauts. Shion said that would be great, but he would prefer to start with single orders. Angelina understood. She apologized for rushing. The protagonist replied that he wants to cope on his own. He said that her words gave him hope. Angelina said that since things were going that way, there was a request that she would like to recommend to him. Lately, there had been an increase in the number of requests regarding the sharp increase in the orc population in the neighboring dungeon. She asked if he could help deal with some of the orcs. Usually, adventurers exchange ears for money. It would be nice if he could help explore the dungeon in between. There was a separate fee for that. Angelina took his hand and said that she would not tire of repeating that she knew very well how much effort he had put into the squad and for the good of the guild. No matter how hard it was for him now, happiness awaited him in the future. She said this because she was a mentor to many adventurers. Shion thanked Angelina and asked if they could have lunch together sometime. He himself did not believe that he had said that. Angelina replied that she had 2 requests for him. The first request was to return safe and sound. MC asked what the other request was. Angelina told him to pick a nice place. Shion was happy, a pickup point for carriages on the way to the dungeon. One of the horses noticed that Shion was in a good mood and asked what was wrong. The protagonist began to tell the story, but the horse replied that it was not important and asked for a carrot. Another horse said that he wanted to chew on some tasty grass. Shion agreed. He thought about the power of his gift. He could understand any animal, even monsters. If this gift was as useful as wielding a sword, then perhaps he could easily cover Ayasan and give him time to catch his breath. Shion opened the cloth that covered the entrance to the carriage and asked those sitting there if they would mind if he joined them. He noticed a girl sitting alone in the corner. One of the passengers asked the girl if she was traveling alone. He asked if she wanted to join them. He offered to give her a small share. Shion didn't like the guy saying that it would include spending nights together. The girl sighed and said that she doesn't work with those weaker than her. After all, even goblins communicate better with girls. The passenger got angry. Shion realized that he had to help. But before he could think about it, the girl dropped the boar on the floor and put a sword to his throat. The boar could only swallow in fear. The girl asked why she didn't hear the apology. She warned that one more obscene word in her direction, and the guy might stop breathing. The guy apologized and said that it was a joke. Shion noticed the speed of her movements, faster than Jason. She turned to the protagonist and asked if the other adventurers would recognize him. She assumed that he would be a target for them. Shion replied that he would keep that in mind. He thought about what the girl was talking about. The girl told him to forget about it. It was not important. Shion thought that something was wrong with her, but he answered that it would be as she said. The adventurers reached the forest on a cart and parted ways. Each went his own way. Shion decided that he needed to pull himself together and went into the cave. He lit the way with a torch and said that it was he who had come. A voice from the depths of the cave answered that they had not seen each other for a long time. He asked about the fact that the protagonist came alone today. An ordinary slime, whose name was Lime, was sitting on a stone. He was chewing grass grown by a man with appetite. Lime offered the grass to Shion. Shion refused the treat and said that he decided to work alone. Lime was not surprised, but asked about the fact that MC would now always be alone. Shion answered that not always, but asked why the slime was asking about this. Lime started begging the protagonist to take him along. He clarified that the annoying blonde guy and the gloomy girl wouldn't be coming anymore. He didn't understand what was wrong with wanting to accompany the MC. Shion didn't know what to answer. Lime dreamed of meeting a damsel in distress and saving her. Shion agreed, and Lime joined the party. Lime asked what they were going to do. The protagonist said that the orcs had become very active lately, so he was here to find out more about it. He asked the slime if he knew anything about it. Lime replied that it was true. The orcs had recently changed their leader. Rumor had it that he had his own scores to settle with humans. That's why even those who had never left the dungeon before had joined the cause. Lime asked Shion to take care of himself. The protagonist wondered if the orcs had become more active after the change of leader. If that was really the case, then he should be on his guard. Shion thanked the slime for the information. Shion noticed 3 goblins and decided that he could handle them, but that might be a problem in the future. The goblins were D rank. He asked the slime to cover him while he attacked. Lime said that he hated goblins because they attacked him every time they saw him. Shion charged and used the wind skill. With the first blow, he cut one goblin in half and hit the other one in the face. Having quickly finished off the goblins, Shion thanked the slime for its help. The slime also agreed that the job was well done. Lime noticed that Shion had leveled up well. The protagonist replied that they had fought like old times. He said that he was counting on the slime's help in the future. The friends went further into the dungeon. Suddenly, an arrow stuck in the ground near the protagonist's foot. Shion wondered what this could mean. A group of people appeared from the darkness, led by the guy from the carriage. He said that the MC was acting too calmly. The guy said that even in exile, Shion acted as if he was still a B rank. Shion replied that he didn't ask for advice and teasing. He noticed that there was a guy in this squad who bullied him at the bar. The squad leader yelled at the protagonist to shut up. He said that Iasan always laughed at them. He yelled that Shion would pay for this as a loner. Shion realized that these guys like to create the impression of being bad, but he didn't even know about his existence before this skirmish. And he, who has become a loner, is much easier to pin down than someone with a real score to settle. That's why these guys are still all C rank. Coming face to face with an offender is not so easy. Shion clarified, were the guys sure about this? He reminded that the guild forbids conflicts between adventurers. The guy chuckled and said that it was just a rule. He asked the protagonist if he really thought he could report them if he died now. Shion told them not to expect mercy and stamped his foot hard. The leader of the squad hiccuped in fear. One-on-one fight was planned. The guy shouted. Did the protagonist really want to scare him with such nonsense? He asked what Shion could do with his gift of translation. Shion decided to show what he was capable of. Someone from the crowd shouted that the protagonist was bluffing and offered to capture him. At that moment, when the MC began to surround, a slime appeared and apologized for being late. He said that he brought orcs. Shion replied that the slime had arrived just in time. Someone from the squad shouted that things were bad because an army of orcs was approaching. They were C-rank orcs. One of the orcs shouted that the humans should be killed. The cook would like them. The other orcs supported him and shouted, "Kill the humans." The guy who had just challenged Shion to a fight suggested joining forces. Shion ordered to hold ranks. He told the guy that he didn't plan to die here anyway. Shion noticed that there were only 15 orcs, and if they were good at fighting, the squad would be able to handle them. But he thought that if the guys from the squad died here, he would be sad. Shion decided that if he supported the squad now, then later, when everything calmed down, he would be able to leave. He shouted to the squad leader to start doing something. The protagonist shouted that the leader of the orc squad, the one who was behind, he suggested hitting the most ferocious ones from a distance. The guys from the squad agreed with this tactic. Shion thought that his job was done, as bats appeared. They were alarmed by the noise. Shion asked Lime to report if anyone got in their way. Lime said, "The smell of war." He noticed the leader of the orc squad running into the middle of the battle. The orc shouted who the strongest of the humans was and ordered to show him. Shion thought it was a loud statement. The leader of the human squad told the orc that his words were just unintelligible squeals to them. Noisy. Squealing pig. The orc hit the guy, and he fell. Shion wondered about the orc defeating a C-rank human with one blow. Maybe the orc had a gift? But the orc didn't stop there. He said that from the protagonist's movements it was clear that he was the strongest of them all. The orc rushed at Shion. The protagonist called for help from Lime, and he rushed to help his comrade. Shion was able to stop the blow with his sword. The orc was surprised. The man was able to repel his attack, and that was not bad. Lime tried to entangle the orc's legs, but the orc pushed him aside like a ball. The orc didn't understand where the human had such strength. After all, he was able to tame a slime. Shion thought that this orc would be more suitable for a fight than Iason. Shion struck from the left, but the orc struck from the right. Suddenly, a female silhouette appeared between them. The girl said that she thought that he was able to hear the prophecy. She turned to face Shion, smiled, and asked if he, her savior, was okay. Shion was completely confused. They called him a savior? A beautiful miracle with scarlet hair that looked like fire appeared in front of him. He recognized this girl as the one from the carriage. The orc was surprised that the girl was able to repel his attack. That was not bad for a human woman. He was not happy that she interfered in his battle, but he felt that a fight with her would be much more fun. The girl asked the orc what he was squeaking about. She said that she would take it as a challenge to fight. Shion wondered if the orc was really that stupid, because ordinary people couldn't understand him. The girl swung her sword and said that she was sorry, but she would finish it quickly. She rushed to attack. The orc managed to put up a defense block. Shion tried to help with hints, but the girl moved so quickly that he couldn't keep track of everything. The orc tried to grab her by the hair, but she slipped away from him. Each of them looked at the enemy with curiosity and understood that he had exceeded all expectations. Shion noticed that it was written on their faces that they were both inhumanly strong. He wanted to help, but he couldn't even break through closer. The orc said that the girl had held out against him for a very long time. He asked for her name. A blow, another block. Shion was shocked by how the girl parried the blows. He didn't understand what she was planning. At one point, the girl decided to interrupt the fight and used force, after which an explosion thundered. Shion was amazed that such power was used even without a spell. He hoped that it was over and peered into the smoke. Slime said that even such a strong orc could not withstand the force of the explosion. The protagonist was glad that his comrade was okay. The smoke cleared and the silhouette of an orc appeared. The girl was surprised by this. The orc stood there wounded but alive. He told the girl to prepare to taste his fist. The girl did not understand what the orc was going to do. The orc used a strong blow. Shion shouted to the girl about it, and at the same moment the sword with the orc's hand stuck into the ground. The girl was much faster. Shion and Lime stood with their mouths open. The The girl quickly and gracefully turned towards her opponent. The orc grabbed his sword with his other hand and bit off the severed hand with his teeth. No one could parry his blow before. He admitted that he was a strong man. The girl in turn said that the orc was not bad in battle, and she wanted to show him something else. She swung her sword, but the orc tried to attack first. Lime said that something was wrong. Shion noticed that despite the wounds, the orc was getting stronger and faster. Lime asked the protagonist, "Wouldn't this be a problem for the girl?" MC decided to watch further. Another blow and block. An orc with a bow in his hands appeared from behind. He was aiming at the girl. Suddenly, the orc with whom the girl was fighting threw his sword at the orc with the bow. The girl was surprised. Shion said that the orc killed his own comrade. The orc shouted that this was his battle, and demanded not to interfere. The protagonist believed that this was called a battle cry. The orc and the girl stood opposite each other. The orc bowed to her and apologized, saying that one of his comrades created problems. He pulled his sword out of his defeated comrade. The protagonists approached him and asked the warrior of the orc clan to let them have a few words. The girl was surprised and asked what he was doing. MC said that he understood the language of monsters and asked to let him figure it out. The orc asked the protagonist if he also wanted to stop him. The protagonist answered, no. He said that he wanted to hurt the orc and let him continue the duel. Here is his goal. The girl was surprised. What was the protagonist planning? He asked her to just watch. The protagonist examined the orc's wounds and said that if his wound was not healed, he would die at this rate. With the help of the MC ability, the orc would be able to continue the fight another day. He asked the orc, "So what, do you agree?" The orc stuck his sword into the ground and said that he understood and handed the protagonist his stump. The protagonist treated the orc's wounds for some time. He attached his hand back to its place. The orc was happy about this and swung his sword over his head. The protagonist said that no one would restore the orc's lost blood, so there was no need to overdo it. The orc said that he would let them, the little humans, go only today. The protagonist agreed, okay, and thought, is the orc even dumber than he thought? The protagonist told the orc to try not to die before their next meeting. The orc extended his hand and said, Schwain, that's his name. The protagonist shook his hand and said his name was Shion. So they'll see each other again. When they left the dungeon, the girl asked the protagonist, could he explain? What did he just do? The protagonist asked her, was she asking about the agreement? He apologized and said that he promised the orc one more fight with her so that he would let them go. Shion looked at his shirt. Damn, I need to mend it before going back. The girl replied, no, that's not what she was asking about. Was Shion really talking to a monster? The protagonist replied that his gift allows him to talk to any creature that has at least a hint of intelligence. At that moment, a bird landed on his shoulder and he thanked it for examining the area. The girl saw this and said, amazing. MC said, it's a small thing, just an unfortunate gift that allows him to communicate. He was even kicked out of the team because of this gift, so now he works alone. But it's nice to be praised by someone. The girl said that she had a gift too. She asked what her voice sounded like. The protagonist replied that last time her voice seemed to double, so that's what it was. But thanks to that, he escaped trouble twice, so thank you. She asked her voice, can you really hear it? She hugged him and said that they finally met. She called him her savior. He thought that she smelled so nice and that she was soft and elastic. They squeezed Lime between them. Lime said hello to the two of them. The girl apologized for that. She was inattentive. Shion replied that it wasn't her fault. They apologized to her too. He introduced himself again and said that his name was Shion, and this guy's name was Lime. Lime said that it was nice to meet you. The girl's name was Cassandra, a demonic oracle, rank B. She introduced herself that her name was Cassandra and that she was also a loner. The protagonist thought, Cassandra, a beautiful name. She suggested that if he didn't mind, she would like to join him. The protagonist asked, and form a team? He? With her? Sometime later, in the Adventurers Guild building, Angelina said, I see, so the new leader has stirred up the orcs. Surprisingly, an orc who is susceptible to a gift. She thanked Shion. With the information from him, the guild will be able to organize a group to suppress the orcs. Soon, the guild will announce the gathering of a suppression group, and when the time comes, it will be wonderful if Shion joins. The protagonist thought, everything is going somehow smoothly. Come to think of it, where did those guys go that he met in the dungeon? He asked Angelina, by the way, did those guys who were here this morning come back by any chance? She answered, unfortunately, there is no news from them. They are of middle rank, so she hopes that no one got into trouble. Perhaps something happened? If something did, she will be on Mr. Shion's side. The protagonist said that they had crossed paths in the dungeon. Angelina said that if that was the case, she did not think there was any reason to worry. She asked, by the way, who was the girl who came with him? He was not hunting women, was he? He could not think of anything better than to look for love in the dungeon. The protagonist tried to calm her down. She misunderstood. He said that the girl helped him when he was in danger. Then he remembered. Oh yeah. Does the guild have information about Cassandra? Angelina looked and said, well, according to the guild archives, Cassandra, the bringer of disaster, is quite famous in these lands. A loner of rank B with blood-red hair. A swordswoman whose weapon is an oriental sword, katana. Even when she joins parties in high-ranking dungeons, she usually comes back alone. But even so, she's incredibly capable. It would be foolish to pass up the opportunity to team up with her. Of course, these are all just rumors, so it's impossible to say for sure. But as the saying goes, where there are tracks, there are monsters. The protagonist said that everything was clear to him. He thanked Lady Angelina. He thought about Cassandra, maybe she has her reasons. But she doesn't seem like a bad person. He decided that he needed to think about it. Even if he was deceived, he was still just a pathetic parody of a hero. Angelina distracted him from his thoughts. Shion, he responded, right? She asked, off topic, when they would go on a date. She said that there wasn't much work lately, so it would be easier to leave. The protagonist was surprised. Wow, she really agreed to go with him? And they would be alone, just the two of them? She said yes. After all, Shion often helped her. And it seems he is doing well as a loner. That can be noted too. Shion was glad. If so, he would soon tell her everything. He thought, finally, his day is on the line. There was not a single girl who would agree to go on a date with him. She was the only one around him, and anyway, all the girls usually threw themselves at Ayasan. But Angelina is so kind to everyone. Maybe she just acts like a professional. Still, it is too early to rejoice. After some time, he met Cassandra. He apologized for the wait. She replied that everything is fine, and she likes to study the guilds in different cities. She is starting to understand the local standards. Cassandra noticed a smile on his face and asked, by the way, what kind of smile is that? Did something good happen? He told her that he is not smiling. That is his cool look. He advised her to try the pork sauté with herbs here. She said that sounds good, so she'll take it. The protagonist noticed and asked, she seems to be in a great mood. Does she like this? Cassandra replied, she hasn't eaten with anyone for a long time. Maybe she's just very happy. Is that weird? The protagonist was surprised by this. He said that today they were celebrating and asked her not to deny herself anything. After dinner, Shion suggested discussing the creation of a team. He asked her to follow him. They went to the meeting room. He said that first they should reveal their guild cards to each other. She replied that she would think about it. He was surprised. Was something wrong? Cassandra said, well, no, but it would be easier to show than to tell. And she began to show him. Nothing but rare and high-level skills. He couldn't read even half of the description of her gift. Some of the abilities he had never seen at all. Was she a half-breed? She said that there were a couple of things she needed to clarify. The first was her hair. You could tell by it that she was not an ordinary person. She had demon blood in her. The protagonist was surprised. A demon? Wait, she's talking about those demons? Demons. They wield powers different from monsters. They are said to be the descendants of gods who fell in the battle for world domination. There are only a few of them left these days, but their unprecedented power makes them almost legendary. Demons still exist, but they hide, and frankly, he has never seen any of the demons before. So, demonic blood flows through her. He asked her out loud, a half-breed? Cassandra confirmed, yes, that's right. It was all clear to him. She has no equal in frontline combat, and her ability to foresee the future makes her even stronger. And what can I say? She is beautiful. To form a team with someone like her is a gift from above, Cassandra said, and secondly, her gift. The gift of the demonic oracle has a couple of features. This gift allows her to look into the future a few seconds ahead. And like a prophecy, she sees the future that is far ahead. The protagonist was surprised. Wow, that's useful. She also added that her gift has no weaknesses, but the gift has a clear vulnerability. He looked at her questioningly. That's how she survived all this time. The future she saw with her gift is not transmitted correctly to others. For example, the protagonist heard her voice split, just like that time. She continued, if she tried to warn a person about an approaching tsunami, the person would hear her say that today is a good day, right? The protagonist thought, what a damn gift. She can't convey what she really wants. Shion said that his gift translates her lies into truth. That's why his voice splits. She was happy, yes. So if he can hear her prediction correctly, then she will be able to save lives that she couldn't save before. That's why he is her savior. She asked, so what does he think? Of course, her gift has its drawbacks, and she can't look at the situation rationally because of the ability of this gift. But she is confident in physical strength and thinks that they will work well together. For this, she will do anything, accept any conditions, and is even ready to give a large share of the reward for any tasks. The protagonist thought about it. He said that they can create a team only on one condition. She agreed. Okay, anything. If it bothers him, she can even change her hair color. Shion was surprised. Why? He likes it as is. Hair looks like tons of fire. Although it is a small thing, but when she saved him, he was sincerely delighted. Cassandra was surprised and asked, do you like it? Does he like her hair? Isn't it strange? Such an unnatural color. You can tell from her hair that she is not quite human. He encouraged her. So what? According to him, she looks cute. And also, he asked her not to forget, he teamed up with a slime. Shion told her that her demon blood didn't matter to him. With his gift, he knew that even among monsters there were good guys. It all depended on the personality. She asked, but isn't that worse? He'd heard her other name, right? The protagonist asked, bringer of disaster, right? He said that he knew the truth, that because of her gift, Cassandra was misunderstood by those around her, but she still tried to warn him. She fought with a gifted orc to save the protagonist, and even now, she revealed the truth. Even though the truth could turn against her, he trusts Cassandra. And one more thing, she's definitely a great person. When she realized that she could pass on a prophecy with the protagonist's gift, the first thing that made her happy was that she could save lives, not clear her name. To the protagonist, she was like a hero from Legends. She said sheepishly that it was too much of an honor for her, but she still thanked him for his words. Cassandra asked, in that case, what condition are we talking about? The protagonist explained that she calls him a savior, but that is not true. Since they are going to be a team, they should be equal. He is not against splitting the rewards in half, but they will discuss the assignment together. And he would like everything to be built on mutual respect. That is, not one-sided trust, but the ability to rely on each other. Therefore, he will not be her savior. It would be better to become her comrade. What will she say to this? She was surprised. Is that all? Shion said that this is the most important thing for him. And besides, he is the weakest. He can only handle simple assignments. She cheerfully said that if that is the case, then she will train him. They are comrades now, right? Her training will be harsh, so he needs to prepare. She said that she will not let him go, even if he cries and begs her about it. He was discouraged by this turn of events. The next day, the protagonist came to the guild. Angelina said, I see. So you're forming a team? Shion tried to object. Angelina? She asked not to say another word. She understood everything. He's an adventurer, and she's a guild worker. Nothing more, nothing less. She guessed he decided to listen to her advice. The protagonist thought she was wary of him, but that was just a lie. Cassandra asked why Angelina looked at the protagonist like trash. Angelina said, Cassandra is a B-rank loner, but the womanizer, Shion, is a C-rank, so they'll have to take a test. The protagonist was screaming inside. Angelina was now colder towards him than usual. Angelina continued and said that she believed in them, but hoped that Cassandra wouldn't do all the work for both of them. If they did well, they would receive a B-rank certificate. Cassandra was happy. This was their first mission as a team. We must give it our all, Shion. The protagonist was already quite upset and said, yeah, we'll give it our all. Angelina turned to Cassandra and said that it was just her curiosity, but how did the two of them decide to team up? The protagonist declined her offer to join a group. Did he have a crush on Cassandra? Shion was indignant. Hey, I don't think there's a reason. Cassandra said sadly that Shion planned to remain alone. She apologized and said she would do everything not to be a burden. She explained that she insisted, so it was not the protagonist's fault. Angelina replied, everything. Everything that was said was great. How bad he is. Cassandra was indignant. What? Of course not. Shion is wonderful. Last night he even complimented her hairstyle. If he was really bad, he wouldn't have said that. Angelina was surprised. Oh, last night? They only met a day ago, and they were already so close. She turned to the protagonist and said that it turns out he knows how to charm girls. He got along well with Asa of the Argonauts too, didn't he? The protagonist tried to calm her down and said that she was wrong. There was no reason to be jealous. But Angelina couldn't calm down. She smirked and said that she could smell lies from someone's mouth. Shion said that he teamed up with Cassandra not because of her beautiful hair. Now Cassandra was indignant. His words last night were a lie? Of course, who would like such hair? Sorry. The protagonist tried to calm her down too. What he said about her hair was true. Angelina got angry and asked sarcastically, can they flirt somewhere else? She was busy with work here after all. The protagonist got tired of this and rushed to the exit. He said that, in any case, they accepted the task. He told Cassandra that they were leaving. Finally, Angelina asked that Shion return in one piece. He promised her. Rank B quest, launch of the operation to destroy the troll. Shion said, well then, let's go. Cassandra confirmed, yes. If he uses the technique she showed him, it will be easy. She asked him to try hard. The protagonist said he would do his best. She said that they first need to find the target. In missions like this, searching is always the hardest. Cassandra wondered, where could they find someone? The protagonist replied, as far as searching goes, he had already finished. It wasn't that hard. The bird told the protagonist that it would lead them to a place with 3 creatures deep in the forest. He looked at Cassandra. What happened? She had a very surprised expression. She said, it's great that the protagonist has the gift of translating everything. He said sadly, only with this ability it is quite difficult for him to find friends. Although in the end, thanks to this gift, he now has many of them. She replied, but in the cave he met bats and a slime. And thanks to them, he found out where the monsters were and what was happening in the cave. Meanwhile, the protagonist climbed a tree and picked the fruits that the bird showed him. He showed them to Cassandra. She was surprised. They were very expensive. Cassandra wondered how someone with such an outstanding gift could be fired. She asked if there were rumors that he flirted with all the girls from the Argonauts. Was that true? The protagonist was surprised. Why? He was the weakest of them all. No one noticed him. And what kind of girls were there? There were only 4 people in the group. Asa was loyal to Jason, and Medea was even a childhood friend. Cassandra calmed him down. Okay, we need to move this topic for later. She said she thought he misunderstood something. In the group, each member has a role. She is the front fighter, and her specialty is close combat. The mages occupy the back positions and specialize in long-range attacks. She explained to the protagonist, although he considers himself a weak fighter, in fact, reaching an average level in each of these skills is an impressive achievement. This means that even if he considers himself weak, he can fulfill this support role. Xion was surprised and said that she seems very knowledgeable, although she has always been a loner. Cassandra explained she studied this to be prepared for such moments. This is great, and a great responsibility indeed. He waved his hand enthusiastically. Well, let's have a blast. They continued walking. The bird flew in, and the protagonist translated that they would soon be there. Cassandra said that she was looking forward to it. Trolls among C-rank adventurers are considered the most difficult opponents. They are much stronger and more terrible than the same orcs. The most annoying thing about them is their fast regeneration. Everything except fatal wounds is instantly restored. Earlier, in the Argonauts, Medea used powerful spells to defeat the troll with one blow. Meanwhile, they reached the place where 3 trolls were sitting. Now they do not have high-ranking magic and other such abilities, but since Cassandra is a capable swordsman with a dangerous weapon, there is a chance. The protagonist can buy her time to attack. He asked her how much time she needs to kill one. Cassandra answered, 5 seconds. He was surprised only. She answered that she can handle 2 pretty quickly, so the last one is on him. She thinks that should work. Xion was surprised. The 3rd one is on him, alone. Cassandra answered that he can handle it. She will help if necessary. But she believes that the protagonist can do everything himself. She took out her sword and rushed to attack. Forward, he had no choice but to follow her example. Well, if she says so, with a swing of her sword, she immediately cut off the head of the first troll. She rained fire magic on the head of the second, and while he was distracted, she cut it off with her sword. Cassandra stopped and watched as Xion attacked. One of the trolls had a burning head. Xion called the 3rd troll on himself. The troll called the protagonist small. Xion shouted, "Well, hold on." The troll swung his club at the protagonist and wished him death. Xion mentally prepared himself for the fact that his comrade believed in him, and he could do anything. He just needed to concentrate. Xion crouched, and the club flew right over his head. The protagonist fell a little to the ground from awkwardness, but pulled himself together and used the flaming sword. He ran up behind the troll and cut off his leg. The troll fell to the ground and screamed in pain. Xion was happy that he was able to do it. Cassandra shouted that the troll was still alive. At that moment, the troll swung his club without looking, but the protagonist managed to react. Cassandra shouted again for Xion to keep attacking until the troll got up. The protagonist replied that he understood. He decisively struck and cut off the arm. The troll screamed in pain and tried to grab the protagonist with his surviving arm, but Xion stuck his sword right into the mouth and shouted, "Try this." Flames of fire came out of the troll's eyes and mouth, and blood spurted out of its neck. Finally, the troll fell dead to the ground. Xion couldn't believe that he was able to defeat him. Cassandra ran and was happy for her comrade that he succeeded. She said that using fire in battle in this way is much more effective than she expected. It was a good job. MC was also surprised by the victory, and it was all thanks to his great teacher. Cassandra and Xion punched each other in victory. Adventurers Guild. The girl in the guild replied that she had accepted the troll stone from Xion and Cassandra. She congratulated them on being officially recognized as a B-rank team. She said that Angelina was currently in a meeting, but she would be happy for them too. Xion replied in a barely audible voice that he wanted to believe it. After all, she had done so much for him. The girl said that there was a rumor that a rather large order would be posted soon. It was all thanks to information obtained by a certain adventurer. As Xion was pondering the information, a voice came from behind him, saying that the guild was too generous to give Xion a B rank. Xion turned around and saw Jason and Medea standing there. Xion greeted Jason and said that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. Jason proudly said that she was sure that the protagonist would crawl to them in tears and beg them to take him back. But instead, he created a team, and with a girl at that. Cassandra noticed that the young man was talking very rudely to Xion. She asked if the protagonist knew him. Xion replied that he was the leader of the Argonauts group from which he was expelled. The young man proudly shouted that he was the great hero Jason. Cassandra laughed at the word hero. She replied that he was not worth a fingernail like Shion and looked more like a complete zero. Jason became furious at such humiliation and called Cassandra. Medea could barely hold him back. Jason asked Medea if she really thought he would lose to this girl, or was she holding him back because fighting was prohibited in the guild? Medea explained that this girl, Cassandra, was a bringer of disaster, a solo adventurer of the B rank. Jason was surprised that Shion had a murderer as an ally. How disgusting. Cassandra was surprised and replied that it was not so. Shion grabbed Jason by the lapels and asked why he said that. Jason shouted, "Hands off." Shion demanded that Jason apologize to Cassandra. He said that Jason could say whatever he wanted to him personally, but he would not allow an ally to be insulted. Jason replied that everyone called this girl that. He could not be wrong. Shion shouted that as long as he was alive, this was the most important confirmation. Jason said that the protagonist had fallen under her spell, so they would not solve anything and suggested a duel. MC replied that he was ready right now. Cassandra tried to calm Shion down. She asked to give her the opportunity to figure it out herself. Shion said that he knew that her skill was at its best. Cassandra replied that this motivated her even more, because their honor was at stake. Jason laughed and asked what it was like to see a woman stand up for him. Cassandra snapped at Jason to bark as long as he could. She handed Shion a bag of coins and asked him to bet on her victory. Shion replied that he would do so. He shouted loudly that 2 people had already bet on Cassandra and asked who else wanted to bet. The girl behind the counter shouted for the duel to begin. The crowd of adventurers shouted words of support for Jason. No mercy for losers. Medea clasped her hands on her chest and hoped for Mr. Jason's victory. Someone from the crowd shouted for Jason to put the red-haired girl in her place. Jason proudly said that he would give the girl a gift and offered her to go first. Cassandra replied that if so, she would gladly agree to it. She used a fire dash and in an instant was near her opponent. Jason did not have time to think about anything and flew to the side from the blow. The blow was so strong that Jason broke the wall in the room. Medea was afraid for him. All the onlookers opened their mouths in surprise. Shion jumped for joy for Cassandra's victory. Shion thought that Cassandra was good at fighting. All the losers threw bags of coins down and said that she deserved it. Angelina ran into the room and asked what was going on here. The girl from behind the reception desk threw herself into her arms. Angelina asked Shion to explain everything to her. After hearing the story, Angelina said that there was one point that was worth discussing, and she suggested that Cassandra and Shion follow her. Cassandra and Shion looked at each other and followed Angelina. They entered the library and Angelina suggested that they sit down and listen to her. That day, when a group of mercenaries was sent into the dungeon, only one of them returned alive. When he was brought, he said only one thing and passed out. Now his health is being monitored by healers. With this information, the guild will soon announce an emergency mission. The announced mission would be the beginning of the final exploration, so she wanted them to tell her what happened that day in the dungeon. Shion replied that he would tell her everything. A special mission. There are many different types of missions. The quests that anyone can accept, and those that are announced by the guild for specific groups of adventurers. These teams cannot refuse the quest without a strong reason. Shion wondered if the orc wave crisis had really hit the city. Angelina thanked him for the explanation. She said that besides the 2 of them who stood out from the crowd of adventurers, there was a bearer of a gift that increased the power of the crowd. Shion asked if it could be the Orc King. Cassandra asked Shion if he knew something. The protagonist replied that he read about it in the old guild records. Tens of years ago, an army led by the Orc King left their cave and headed towards the city. Despite their small number, they were all very strong, sweeping away everything in their path. The guild sent out A-rank adventurers to meet them. But in the end, it all ended with the loss of 2 entire cities and many lives. Cassandra said that the enemies that even A-rank adventurers couldn't defeat had returned. Angelina said that she didn't think it was as bad as it was then, but it was better to defeat the enemy before they grew stronger. Shion asked for permission to join since things were so serious. Cassandra replied that it would be a great opportunity to prove himself. Angelina thanked them. She really hoped to receive such an answer. She decided to explain the details to them before they announced it to all adventurers. A few days later, the Adventurers Guild. A huge number of adventurers came to hear the announcement of a new quest. The doors opened and Shion entered with Cassandra. The crowd of adventurers whispered that the winner Jason was coming. Shion whispered to Cassandra about the noise she made. Cassandra corrected him and said that they were together. Angelina greeted Shion and Cassandra and wished them a good morning. She said that she had a special task for them from the guild. She asked if they would take on the job. Shion replied that they were in. The guild was his second home. Cassandra replied that she had no reason to refuse either, and if they defeated the monster with a gift, they would get a special reward, right? She said loudly that her fists were already itching. The crowd began to whisper in surprise that they were also participating. A voice was heard from behind, who asked if they had forgotten about him. It was the hero Jason and the Golden Fleece Seekers, or Argonauts. Jason declared that their squad was in the job too. He turned to Shion and the red-haired girl and said that he would show off his teamwork. With them was the C-rank solo monster slayer, Theseus, and the C-rank solo Lightfoot, Atalanta. Cassandra said that the loser was making a fuss and asked Shion to translate for her. Jason shouted that he would remember this Cassandra. He said that they were holding a strategy meeting, and he was gathering gifted people into his squad. Suddenly, someone called out to Shion. It was the C-rank royal knight, Castor, and his sister, the C-rank swordsman, Pollux. Shion was happy to see them and said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Shion said that he heard about their promotion to C-rank and congratulated them. Pollux thanked him and said that they were invited to join too. Shion said that they had both grown so much and he was very happy for them. Castor snapped back that they shouldn't be lectured, and at that moment, Pollux punched him in the stomach. She smiled sweetly and asked Shion to tell him about the battle with the gift holder. Cassandra asked if little Castor was okay. Shion smiled and said that Pollux was tougher than he looked. He had been watching them for a long time. He said he couldn't remember much to answer her question. Such creatures behaved completely differently. If they encountered them, they had to be careful and never attack first. Castor said that Shion said that because he was weak. Pollux pulled her brother up, and they started arguing again. Cassandra said that their relationship was strange. Pollux told Castor that Shion and Cassandra seemed to get along well. Castor agreed with her. Positive and energetic Pollux, a fighter of the front and rear. Thoughtful and cautious Castor, the vanguard. They complemented each other well. Cassandra said that she was even a little jealous of them. There are things that cannot be faked, no matter how hard you try. Shion suggested that they build their relationship in their own way. Cassandra agreed and offered to join the meeting. Shion explained that the formation would be something like this. Scouts are exploring the territory. The reason for the meeting is to decide when the rest of the forces will leave. The number of carriages for people is limited. They will be in the main holding group. Shion said that he was worried about Lime. He asked him to go with the advance guard so that they would know the current situation. Cassandra smiled and said that they would definitely win. Shion completely agreed with her. The carriages went along the road in a strict column. Cassandra asked Shion if he knew the twins well. Shion said that they met when he was a teacher for newbies in the guild. Cassandra asked if he did much besides adventuring. The protagonist answered that sometimes he just talked to animals and even monsters. He did this to earn the trust of the guild in another city. One day, while talking to a goblin, an adventurer caught him, mistaking him for a monster. Then MC was in despair. But thanks to the people who vouched for him then. Later, the blacksmith gave him a mithril sword that conducts magic well. Cassandra couldn't stop admiring the protagonist. Shion replied that it wasn't his merit. If he didn't have a mentor who trained him, he didn't know what he would do. Cassandra asked if the mentor was also an adventurer. Shion replied that the mentor used to be an adventurer. Cassandra smiled and said that as his partner now, she would do her best not to ruin his reputation. Temporary guild camp. Pollux asked Shion about what they would be moving out now. Shion asked the twins not to be too nervous. If they encountered a strong enemy, they would definitely have to flee. Castor rudely replied that Shion's task was to survive and get information. He asked not to give them any more advice. Pollux tugged at his sleeve and quietly asked him not to interfere in the conversation. She thanked Shion and wished him to be careful. Pollux sighed and said, if they returned in one piece, then maybe she could ask him for a favor? Shion replied that if it was within his power, then why not? Castor pulled his sister up. Pollux thanked Shion and she and her brother ran away. Cassandra asked Shion if these guys would be okay. Shion replied that they both had gifts that would guarantee their safety. Cassandra asked if it was a special ability. Shion replied that their interaction was a special ability that ordinary C ranks could not even dream of. He said that if Cassandra was so interested, she should ask them about it herself. He suggested that they go and take their positions. In the dungeon, Shion met a slime and asked if anything had changed. Lime replied that everything, absolutely everything had changed. A lot of people had come, and the orcs had started digging holes everywhere. Lime was afraid that they would dig through to his house, and then everything would disappear. Shion said that the guild had come to suppress the orcs, and even Lime was participating in this. He asked the slime not to worry, it wouldn't be harmed if it hid. Shion wondered if orcs dug holes. He had never heard of them having such habits. Lime was scared and said there was one more thing he had to tell. Shin noticed that Cassandra had closed her eyes and something was happening to her. She suddenly said that it couldn't be. Pollux and Castor went underground. Pollux said that she was lucky. Her village was destroyed by goblins, so all that was left was to become an adventurer. She and her brother were both gifted, so they didn't have much trouble surviving. But to be honest, she had lost the meaning of such a life. Shion was the one who gave her hope, not as a child who lost her home, but as an adventurer. The words he said to her still support her. Castor told his sister that she was injured. Pollux was sure that after this cleanup she would be useful to Xion. She thanked her brother for his concern. Castor took his sister's hand and said that he understood how she felt, but they were in enemy territory and they needed to concentrate. Pollux promised to be careful. They noticed something glowing in the darkness. These were the orcs' eyes. The twins were confused. Pollux used wind and Castor used a mark from below. Xion didn't like that there were so many people in the dungeon. Because of this, the bats woke up. Cassandra didn't understand why the guild people were so angry. Something must have happened. Xion said that their lives were not in danger, but he was confused by the orcs' strange behavior, which Lime had told him about. They rushed into the depths of the dungeon. He asked Cassandra about it because she had seen everything. If they didn't react, then what was the point of their team? Cassandra replied that as soon as they helped, they would apologize for escaping. They decided to catch the goblins, but not to kill them, but to find out everything. They caught one goblin and asked where the people who passed along this road were. The goblin was silent. Then Xion put his sword to his neck and ordered him to answer. They heard the sound of a battle. It seemed true. The goblin tried to run away, and the protagonist didn't even have time to do anything. Cassandra dealt with him and called Xion to follow the sound. Castor desperately fought the orcs. Pollux fought next to her brother. They stood back to back, surrounded by a large number of orcs. There was no end to them. Castor said that he would break through the path for his sister so that she could escape. Pollux called her brother names and did not want to listen to this nonsense. The situation was very tense. One of the orcs tried to hit Castor, but he managed to protect himself with a shield. He said that in this state they could both be killed. At least the sister should survive. Cassandra and Xion appeared like lightning. Xion asked if the twins were okay. He asked to leave the rest of the fight to them. He shouted at the twins that if they did not want to be enslaved, they should leave here. One of the orcs called on the others to kill people. He rushed at Xion, but he managed to jump back. The protagonist noticed that the orcs did not understand words. Was someone controlling them? He noticed that his sword had become very sharp. Xion crouched next to Pollux, picked up her spear, and decided to check something. Xion called for Lime to help. At the moment when one of the orcs rushed with a sword, Xion was calm and used Windblade. The orc was cut like a piece of butter with a hot knife. Then he used Gust, and this wave tore apart the rest of the orcs. Xion noticed that with such power, you can go into battle even against the bearer. He remembered Cassandra and said that no help was needed. It was all simple. Cassandra said that the orcs acted too early. The protagonist replied that they had no reaction to his gift. He had a bad feeling. Pollux was exhausted. She asked Xion if she was dreaming. MC replied that it was all real and offered her a drink from a bottle. Pollux took a sip and said that it tasted terrible and that it was definitely not a dream. Xion was glad that she came to her senses. She looked at Xion with big, scared eyes and asked what was wrong with her brother. Castor was kneeling in front of Cassandra and calling her a red-haired angel. The twins thanked her for their help. Xion replied that thanks to their skills, they were able to hold out for so long and help arrived. Cassandra said that she was glad that they were able to help them. Xion praised the twins for their good work. Xion said that the twins would have to leave first and report to the others. Pollux replied that they would not fall into a trap again. She took her brother by the hand and led him to the exit of the dungeon. Castor kept repeating, "My angel," looking at Cassandra. MC suggested looking around. Lime said that there was someone who wanted to see Xion. Xion and Cassandra followed the slime. In the corner of the cave they saw the orc leader sitting. He was all wounded and without strength. Xion called him by his name, Schwein. Cassandra was surprised. "Xion, it's an orc." The protagonist answered calmly, "Yes, the gifted orc from last time. His name is Schwein." Schwein saw the protagonist and asked if he could heal his wounds. Xion replied that he couldn't do it all at once. Cassandra was indignant. What was he talking about? They were fighting the orcs, and he was going to heal him. Lime reported that a group of orcs attacked Schwein, just like they had once attacked him. The protagonist told Cassandra that he was going to heal the orc. If other orcs attacked, she should be ready to kill them all. She told the protagonist, "Are you kidding me? He is our enemy." Xion relayed Lime's words that Schwein was attacked by his own kind, and he himself asked to heal him. Perhaps he just felt sorry for someone in the same situation. It was an old story. But if they could get information about the enemy this way, it would be worth it. Cassandra agreed. Well, she hoped everything would be okay, and she wished this guy would actually talk. The protagonist thanked her for understanding. She told him that if someone else had told her this, she would have thought he was crazy. But since the protagonist was her partner, she trusted his decision. The protagonist laughed, which was embarrassing. "Okay, let's get to work. We need to heal the wounds." He began to heal the orc. Cassandra watched what was happening. "Xion, this is amazing. His wounds healed instantly." The protagonist replied that his magic should not have such an effect. Cassandra was surprised. She had never seen anything like this before. The protagonist was also surprised. Was this also part of the orc's gift? The orc felt noticeably better. He realized that he had been helped. Lime said that those who helped him were good people. The orc told him that he did not understand what Lime was talking about, but he still helped him. Schwain thanked Lime. He turned to Xion and said that he had saved him again. He was feeling well. Xion told him he did not think that they would meet again like this. Schwain saw Cassandra. Oh, and the woman is here. He said that he wanted a rematch right now, but he was not going to fight until he repaid the debt. The orc asked the protagonist what he should do. He was ready to do whatever it took. Well, after that, he demanded to fight him, as promised. The protagonist was surprised and asked, how much does he want to fight Cassandra? She did not understand what they were talking about, and asked, what's wrong? Xion translated to her that the orc wants to continue their fight from last time, but now he is not in the mood. She understood everything and said, more importantly, will they be able to get information from the orc? The protagonist answered that he will try to do it. He asked Schwein, why did his own people attack him? Schwein began to tell. According to him, the fact that he let them go last time and also killed one of his brothers reached their leader. Schwein was also against the invasion of the surface, so he became the target of attacks. The protagonist apologized to him when he realized that he was also to blame for this. He replied that it was his choice, so it is not for people to worry about it. The orc was already supposed to fight the strongest of his kind. They kept charging at each other. Thanks to this, he only stopped harder. Xion was surprised and asked if the orc didn't care at all that his kind attacked him. The orc stood up and, showing his calmness, answered no. He would be lying if he said so, but he would do the same to fight them again. He said that he didn't care about the question of his kind as long as he had the opportunity to fight strong opponents. If they wanted, he could even help them fight the leader. Moreover, he didn't really like what his little brother was doing. The protagonist asked again, so their leader is his brother? And does he also have a gift like Schwain? The orc replied that the protagonist is a smart guy, just like his brother. If you look closely, Xion looks like his brother, with that mug. Schwain's brother has a strange power that allows him to give orders that cannot be resisted. Between them, he is quite frail, but still smart. Before Schwain knew about it, he became the leader. And this time, he said something about going to the surface to enslave humans, and about an invasion plan. Only Schwain did not quite understand him. The protagonist was scared. What? Could it be that they walked right into an orc trap? The guild does not know that their leader is quite smart. If so, the operation will fail. Xion told him that everything is clear, but they will have to fight his brother, and they can kill him right in front of Schwain. Schwain understood what Xion was talking about. Will everything be okay for him? Yeah, he has no reason to protect his brother now. Moreover, for them, the orcs' strength is a priority. Xion understood everything. He told Cassandra and Lime that they need to go. The rest are in danger. Cassandra didn't get it. What do you mean? Did he get the information? The protagonist confirmed, and the news was bad. There was no time now. He would tell her everything on the way back. At the same time, other events happened. The Golden Fleece Seekers squad, the Argonauts who had accepted the guild's mission, Jason and the others set out for the place where, according to the information, the main forces of the orcs were supposed to be. Jason was indignant. Why did they come here? If they hesitated, the others would get ahead of them. Adahanta answered him, you can't mindlessly go wherever your eyes look. They don't know where the orcs could attack from. Jason cursed and shouted that she should ask the bats for directions then. She was a hunter. Were the animals really beyond her control? She replied that only those she had raised herself. But she couldn't talk to bat ears. Jason said with annoyance, if Xion were here, there wouldn't be such problems. Medea asked Mr. Jason to calm down. He contradicted her. She was the one who said that she wanted to exclude Xion from the group. She was indignant, but then Jason agreed with her. He could not calm down anymore and shouted at the top of his voice. What? She wants to say that it is his fault? If this guy was even a little more useful, this would not have happened. Damn, the Argonauts, the Seekers of the Golden Fleece, all B rank. They need to make a name for themselves and rise to A rank, so Jason could not afford to lose, especially to Xion. He agreed that their information is insufficient, but in terms of strength, they are unmatched, so they will win. He is a hero. Archmage Medea, whose magical power is unmatched. Swift on foot, the Huntress Atalanta, although she is C rank. Monster Slayer, Paladin Theseus, who is about to receive B rank. All four of them together are talented, making up the perfect team. And this, according to Jason, stupid Xion has teamed up with that devil named Cassandra. If the four encounter them, Jason has no chance. Jason came out of his dreams and asked what the situation was. One of the warriors recognized him and reported, Lord Jason. They were trying to surround the orc base. Several squads went inside. Suddenly, a huge orc emerged from the dungeon. Jason began to dream again. They say heroes need feats. He thought he was late, but fate was on his side. He was going to defeat this monster, and everyone would celebrate the rise of the Argonauts and the Seekers of the Golden Fleece. Jason commanded everyone to listen to him. He demanded that the battlefield be cleared for the Argonauts. At this time, Xion, Cassandra, Schween, and Lime, sitting on the orc's head, ran to the battlefield. Cassandra asked along the way, "So Xion wants to say that the current leader of the orcs will be overthrown by his own brother, and he compensates for his weakness with his brains?" The protagonist translated her question to Schwein and asked, "Is he like that? His brother?" Schwein told that the tribe did not accept his brother because of his weakness. One day, when Schwein was absent, another group took his brother to hunt. Schwein does not know what happened there, but after that, those guys began to obey his brother. Since then, he began to take them hunting and distanced himself from everyone. MC wondered, was that when he awakened the gift? The orc answered, perhaps. Since then, his rather calm brother began to become angrier. His powers allow him to command those he subjugated. For some reason, more and more comrades began to go over to his side, making him more greedy. When Schwein found out about this, his brother had already enslaved the previous leader. Not only did he do whatever he wanted with the tribe, but later he got the idea that one day he would subjugate the outside world. Who knew that the outside world wasn't so bad? Schwein naturally opposed the one who never left the settlement. The protagonist said that the relationship between brothers is really complicated. When they came to the dungeon, did they try to kill Schwein then? The orc was indignant. Hey, look at it from the other side. So he was able to meet them again. And now he can give the current leader a good thrashing. It's not so bad. Cassandra stopped. Wait, the guild thinks that the leader is one of the strongest orcs. Even if they go in that direction now, it will be dangerous if they do not regroup. The protagonist agreed, right? Therefore, they must defeat the real leader at all costs. At this time, a fierce battle was going on between the orcs and the humans. Jason did not understand why they could not break through these pawns. They had prepared so much for this operation. Medea called out to Master Jason. She saw that Theseus was standing in the way of his attack. Jason answered her that he saw and knew it. He called Theseus and told him not to stand in the way of spells. Theseus replied that he was trying, but it did not always work. Atalanta jumped with a battle cry. Jason saw that Theseus was wounded. He cursed and ordered Theseus to heal. He was too slow in this situation. And if only he... Jason egged on the orcs. Let's do it one at a time. Medea called for Master Jason again. He saw that she had prepared a spell and stepped aside from the line of attack. She used the spell, and some of the orcs were defeated. Jason praised Medea for a good job and now asked with renewed vigor. Theseus said that he and Atalanta had not finished healing yet. Jason ordered to catch up after they finished. He called Medea to follow him. She obeyed. They caught up with the other warriors and Jason was happy and surprised. Were they still alive? He said that he had come to help. They recognized him. Jason. Very opportune. Jason ordered the guys to protect Medea. Someone asked if it was she who launched that lightning, then he would continue to rely on her. Only one big orc remained. Jason saw him, so this is what their leader was like. He was huge and fierce. Jason decided that he would defeat this guy and become a hero. He rushed into the attack. First attack, second. One of the warriors said, "It's amazing to fight such a giant alone." Medea commanded that they should prepare for the attack. They agreed. Jason was surprised. The orc was fighting off his attacks. He was very strong. But in this state, the orc would soon get tired. But what kind of feeling was this? Could this big guy with muscles instead of brains really command the orcs so clearly? You shouldn't think that it could happen that the guy was here. He meant the protagonist. Medea called him Mr. Jason. He realized that she was ready to attack. Jason turned to the orc and said that his end had come. There was a flash, and a powerful burst of energy was directed towards the orc. Jason covered his face with his hands. One of the warriors asked, "Did they defeat the orc?" They saw that the orc was standing on his feet as if nothing had happened and were surprised. What? The orc laughed. The warriors could not believe their eyes. This monster used his subordinates as a shield. Jason cursed and rushed into another attack on the orc, but the monster dodged and ended up next to Medea. The orc swung to strike her. Jason shouted, "Watch out," and rushed towards her. At the last moment, he managed to cover her and took the blow on himself. The orc cut his armor and body. Medea was scared. She called, "Lord Jason," fell to his knees and did not understand how it came to this. He thought that fate itself was favorable to him, and in the end, he was in some hole. He will die on the front lines at the hands of some orc. The orc swung to strike. Medea covered Jason with her small body. Jason told her that at least she should be saved. Suddenly a familiar voice was heard, which called the wind with a cry and directed it at the orc. Jason saw and whispered, "Why? Where did he come from?" The protagonist launched a swift attack at the orc and knocked the club out of his hand. Sometime before that, the Fighting Four led by Xion were rushing to help Jason and the other warriors. The protagonist felt everything shaking. He assumed that maybe it was Medea's magic. Cassandra understood. Then they were close and they had to hurry. They almost ran past the turn, but the orc called them in the right direction. Here. There was a flash. The protagonist asked, "Is this the exit? Hurry." Shion just saw the moment when the orc struck Jason. Medea covered Mr. Jason with her body. The orc swung to deliver another powerful blow. The protagonist shouted at him, "Stop! Try that, big guy." He called up the wind and brought it down with a blow of his sword on the orc. He asked Cassandra and Schwein to cover, but they shouted to leave the orc to them. This orc was the leader and Schwein's brother. Schwein said that he always wanted to fight him. Cassandra was pleased, the leader of the orcs then, a worthy opponent. Meanwhile, the protagonist went to Jason and Medea. He asked her how she was, alive? The protagonist called for help, Lime. Jason muttered something incoherently. Lime understood what the protagonist was asking for. Since Shion was asking, he could not refuse him. The leader of the orcs shouted, "The people must disappear. Anyone who gets in his way will die too." The orcs were inspired by the words of their leader and began to move towards the offensive. The protagonist cursed, "Are they already advancing?" He took Medea's staff and said that he would take it for a while. Shion realized that his magic was running out. He waved the staff, he caused a gust of wind, and directed it at the orcs. Cassandra was surprised. Shion used higher magic? Then, she called fire, burn, and directed it along with the wind of the protagonist. Shion shouldered Jason. He saw the fire and was surprised. Is it Cassandra's flame? He turned to Medea and said that it was time to heal. She agreed. The protagonist dragged Jason out of the cave and said that his magic was unstable due to weakness. It was necessary to heal everything quickly. Theseus saw Medea and asked, "Is it her flame that was blazing there?" Then he was surprised to recognize the protagonist, Shion. MC said that Atalanta and Theseus arrived in time. Theseus, seeing Jason in such a state, said that it was terrible. The protagonist explained that he used Lime's abilities to stop the bleeding, but Shion's own magic was running out. He turned to Theseus and asked if he could help. While Theseus was helping Jason, the protagonist asked the other warriors how the situation was. Someone answered, "The people from the rear were saved, so the support must be saved." Atalanta watched as Schwein and Cassandra fought with the orc leader and asked, "Do these two even need help?" The protagonist answered, "He thinks not. Everyone needs to get together and find the real orc commander while there is still a chance." Atalanta was surprised. "Isn't this orc the leader of these pigs?" The protagonist answered negatively and told everything he knew. Atalanta was surprised. "There's another gifted orc. It is hard to believe." One of the warriors asked again, "Is this really true?" The protagonist confirmed it. He said that he used the translator's abilities and learned everything from the orcs themselves. Atalanta asked him, "Can Schwein be trusted at all?" The protagonist confirmed it again. The fact that this guy is fighting now is proof. He asked not to attack Schwein. The orc leader swung at Schwein and called him an annoying little thing. But Schwein dodged the blow and struck a blow himself. Schwein asked his brother, "Is he strong? Isn't he?" Schwein summoned a boost and struck his brother with a powerful blow. He fell. Schwein called it useless. Cassandra came closer and struck too. She was surprised by such a blow. Just a scratch? The real leader was in the crowd of other orcs. He was surprised. What's wrong with this woman? This is bad. He decided to get rid of this little human and Schwein too. The protagonist noticed an incomprehensible orc and realized that this was the gifted one. He shouted that he found him. The protagonist called Atalanta and pointed at that guy. He asked if she would hit him. Atalanta took an arrow, pulled the bowstring, and said that she would try. She aimed at the right orc and fired. The orc fell. MC shouted happily, "She hit," and asked, "Did it work?" Atalanta said no. The orc lay there and thought it was impossible that he was wounded. Atalanta said she had missed. The protagonist disagreed with her. No, the orc must be wounded. MC rose to his full height, pointed his sword towards the orcs and ordered, "The leader is wounded. Attack." One of the warriors shouted, "We will do it." Another shouted, "We will take revenge." The gifted orc hid behind a crowd of his kin, called them names and ordered them to protect him. The warriors were already shouting, "You exposed yourself, so take it." The orcs were scared. Schwein shouted, "Attack." The big orc was surprised. "What?" Cassandra shouted, "You exposed yourself, so take it." She rushed to attack and summoned a flaming sword. Schwein added a boost to her attack and together they dealt a crushing blow. The lifeless body of a huge orc lay on the ground. His head burned like a torch. Cassandra shouted that they had defeated the demon boss. The adventurers shouted that they needed to finish off the remaining orcs and avenge their comrades. The soldiers went in a row to attack the orcs. Shion asked if Schwein and Cassandra were okay. The wounded orc leader tried to slip away into the depths of the dungeon. He was sure that after neutralizing the mage, he should have won. He did not understand what kind of person this was. He was able to ignore the fake leader and focused on him. Perhaps the man had the same strength as him. The orc hoped to lure the humans into a trap and defeat them completely. He was going to reorganize his troops and hoped that the humans would fall before his power. But even so, he would not forget about the traitor. His brother turned away from him because of his abilities. The orc was sure that his brother, like everyone else, would be on his side. He wondered if this was revenge for the assassination attempt. But if you think about it, his brother had allied himself with the enemy. He let his brother do whatever he wanted, and he forgot about his kindness. The orc walked quietly, leaning on the wall of the cave, and thought that he had already escaped, but he met MC and Cassandra. Everything turned out as Xion predicted. Cassandra did not believe that the orc could run away in the middle of the battle and abandon his subordinates. Xion said that he simply guessed the orc's actions. It was the right decision to look the orc in the face personally. The orc did not understand why people were here, and this guy who was aiming at him? Cassandra said that she did not think that some orc with a drop of reason would be so problematic. The orc looked at Cassandra and thought that the woman who fought the previous boss was standing in front of him. Xion said that it was all over for the orc. The orc didn't believe that he could understand him. The protagonist said that they would not let him go. The orc thought about the fact that a man was talking to him. Xion said that there was no one left who could protect the orc. The orc realized that this was a good chance to show true fear and weakness in front of people. He began to beg people for help, but in his head he had a plan to take revenge. He said that he did everything against his will and he had no choice. Xion said that maybe we are not so different and we are all trying to survive by any means available. Living and surviving are different things. He asked the orc if he swears to never go to the surface again. The orc bowed at his feet and thought that people are so stupid. Of course he is now ready to promise anything, if only they would let him go. Xion decided to tell the orc something. He said that his ability allows him to read true intentions. The orc pounced on Xion and started calling him names. Xion pulled out his blade to defend himself and the orc attacked him. Cassandra praised Xion for good work. She clarified that it was the orc leader. She said that he was preparing an escape plan. Xion asked to stop joking because they were under great threat. This orc turned out to be much more cunning than he thought. Cassandra approached Xion and asked him that he didn't regret what he did. Did he? Xion replied that if things had turned out differently, he could have ended up like this orc. After all, the orc also tried to survive with his weak gift. The protagonist asked Cassandra that she didn't think so. Cassandra got angry and sharply answered that this was not true at all. She said directly that the orc and the MC are different. The orc thought that his kin were just pawns in his game. Xion could have done the same, but he chose a comrade, or used the gift only for himself, and Xion uses the gift to help others. They were similar, but not similar. The protagonist thought about it. Cassandra said that this was not a trifle at all, and it confused everyone. Xion thanked Cassandra for being the best partner. Cassandra was very surprised. She said that all the seekers were leaving the dungeon, and it was time for them too. They still needed to collect orc stones. Xion told Xuan that they were done with everything here. Xuan regretted that he failed the ambush and ended up in it himself. The protagonist tried to explain something. Xuan stopped him and said that they fought with his brother. He lost and that was it. Xuan remembered that when he was little, his brother shared meat with him and it was so delicious. Before receiving the gift, his brother was so kind. Xion didn't know how to support Xuan and decided to let him be alone with his thoughts. Xuan agreed and reminded him of the promise. Xion replied that they would see each other again. Xion and Cassandra left the dungeon. Coming out of the main gate of the dungeon, Xion stopped and thought. Corinth, the adventurers' guild. Many adventurers gathered in the tavern. There was a lot of food and drink. Angelina said that everyone gathered here to celebrate the victory over the orcs. She raised her mug up and shouted to the bottom. All the adventurers supported her. When Xion wanted to drink with lime on his shoulder, girls approached him. One of them asked about the baby on the protagonist's shoulder. The same slime? The second girl called him cute. The third girl asked if she could touch him. Lime told Xion that he needed to step away for a while and jumped into the arms of one of the girls. She hugged him to her chest and said that the slime was cool and nice. Another girl was indignant that it was not fair. The third wanted to touch him. Lime smiled sweetly. He thought that a woman's touch was much better than a man's. Xion thought about the fact that he was sure that the slime did not understand human language. Someone asked Xion what happened. His face was red. The protagonist turned around and saw Cassandra. He asked how much she drank because her complexion was not natural. Cassandra answered that she would not tell him about it. She smiled and said that MC needed to drink too. Xion was surprised by Cassandra's behavior because he was sure that she did not like such noisy meetings. Cassandra answered that she once tried to come to a meeting, but no one tried to talk to her. Xion said that it was probably because she was too beautiful and no one dared to approach her. Cassandra replied that the protagonist himself did not understand what he was saying. This simply could not be true. The protagonist decided, since this compliment did not fit, to say it differently. He said that even in this outfit, Cassandra looked wonderful. Cassandra replied that the protagonist was simply pulling her leg, but thanked him for the compliment. They chatted pleasantly until someone called out to Cassandra. They were young adventurers. One of them said that she fought the orc well. One asked to tell more about this fight. One asked if it was true that she defeated the black orc and forced him to serve her. Shion understood the curiosity of these young guys from the vanguard. In front of this group of youth stood Castor, who again called her an angel. He did not stop admiring Cassandra's appearance. Shion was surprised that so many people wanted to talk to Cassandra. He decided to step away and said that he would go talk to the rest of the guys. Shion noticed that Angelina was standing in the corner, and next to her was a young man. Shion called out to her loudly and said that he had a report on the operation. Angelina apologized to the guy and said that her name was being called and that she had to run. She approached Shion and said that he saved her from an annoying guy. The protagonist replied that it was because she was very beautiful. Angelina mockingly replied that she was sure that he said this to all the girls, and Cassandra, and Pollux, and many others. After all, he is always flirting with someone, isn't that true? Shion stood there confused by such words. Angelina turned to face him and said that she was just joking. She said that she heard from the reports that he worked hard this time. She was happy for him, but not only as his mentor. The protagonist replied that it was all thanks to her endurance and the guild's help. Theseus and Atalanta were sitting at a separate table and talking about something. Angelina said that it was strange that Jason hadn't come yet. His treatment had been successful and he had almost fully recovered, but he still declined the invitation to the celebration. Shion replied that he understood. Angelina said that in any case, it was decided that Shion had made a great contribution to the success of this operation. The protagonist became embarrassed and said that he had done nothing of the sort. If Cassandra and the others had not been there, he would not have been able to lay a finger on the orc leader. Angelina agreed and said that Cassandra's contribution was hard to ignore. But taking the black orc as an ally and exposing the true leader was his merit alone. Commanding monsters and leading them, only a demon lord, a legendary S-rank adventurer, could do that. Shion was embarrassed and said that his contribution was overrated. He didn't command anyone at all. Lime and Schwein just lent him their power. Angelina sternly said that it didn't change the essence of the matter. She took his hands and looking into his eyes, said that she honestly thought he was amazing. She knew how much he worked on himself to become stronger. Because he revealed the real leader of the orcs, the guild was able to figure everything out and avoid problems in the future. Angelina asked Shion not to be shy, at least for today. The protagonist looked at her and thought that this is what he wanted to do. He told her that he did it. He defeated the orc king. At that moment, the receptionist called out to Angelina and asked if she could distract her for a minute. Angelina smiled sweetly and said that they had a nice chat. She whispered in his ear that they should go out for lunch soon. Angelina ran off on business, and the protagonist thought that no girl had ever been so close to him. Not far from Shion stood a group of adventurers with Pollux. When Angelina left, Pollux ran up to Shion. She asked why he didn't greet her. It was unfair of him. Shion replied that he thought that it was not nice to butt into someone else's conversation. Pollux replied that since it was him, she forgave him and suggested having a drink together. The protagonist noticed that she had already drunk a lot. Pollux started talking about her hero. Shion replied that everyone has a hero they admire. He asked who that person was. Pollux modestly replied that it was a secret. What was more important now was that he had helped her and her brother in the cave. She thought that the cave was the end. Shion said that they were lucky that they had made it in time. But he was very worried about them. Pollux was surprised that the protagonist was worried about her. She threw herself on his neck and said that she was happy. Hugging him, she apologized and said that she seemed to have drunk a lot. Shion caught himself thinking that Pollux smelled nice. Looking into the protagonist's eyes, Pollux said that she had always wanted to tell him something. She asked if he would listen to her. Shion said that he was listening carefully, but at that moment, Castor called his sister. He sternly asked what she was doing. This was completely indecent. If she was drunk, then it was better to rely on him than on this weakling. Pollux turned around abruptly, called her brother names and shouted that she had almost said everything. Castor doubled over in pain and said that it hurt like a broken shin. Shion asked Pollux what she wanted to say. Pollux replied that they would talk another time. Shion thought about it. Cassandra came up next and accused the protagonist of leaving her alone with other girls while he hugged. She said that he irritated her and she would finish him off. Shion did not understand why she was angry. He began to justify himself by saying that he had not hugged anyone, he had just talked to girls. Cassandra shouted that she would knock this habit out of him on the training ground. Shion was in shock. Shion was sitting on his bed and couldn't sleep. He opened the window to get some fresh air and look at the city. But only one phrase that Jason said was ringing in his head. That phrase about the protagonist thinking he could win and that Jason was happy that he now had an ally. Several days had passed since the victory over the orcs. Things in the guild had returned to normal. Xion said that he would take a bottle with him, just in case. Lime was sitting on the protagonist's shoulder and did not understand what they were talking about. Xion put the bottle in his side pocket and hoped that he would not need it. The entrance to the cave was open again. The three of them returned to fulfill their promise. Xion said that the time had come and he was relying on Cassandra. She replied that she knew about his abilities and could not lose in front of her partner. They came to the gate to the dungeon, where Schwein was waiting for them. Xion apologized for making them wait. He asked Schwein how his wounds were. Schwein replied that he was thinking about visiting the surface because he was tired of waiting. If this was his end, then so be it. He suggested that they finish it quickly. They formed a triangle. Lys asked the protagonist if this fight was necessary. He did not want anyone to get hurt. Xion replied that there was an agreement and Schwein kept his word. Now it was their turn to keep their word. He was sure that for Schwein, a fight with a strong opponent was the best reward. The protagonist felt awkward in front of Cassandra. She reassured him that there was no need to worry. She was also looking forward to this battle. Cassandra and Schwein prepared to attack. Xion knew that Cassandra uses two skills, Flaming Sword and Foresight. Schwein, on the other side, has the gift of Berserker, which increases his physical parameters. It was hard to tell which of them was stronger. Moreover, these two had fought together, so they knew each other's abilities. It would be important to see how they could use this in battle. And who would go first? Let's go. They both rushed towards each other. Schwein tried to strike first, but Cassandra jumped over him and ended up behind him. Schwein turned around and Cassandra was already on top. Lime said that everything was happening so fast that his head was already spinning. Xion replied that Cassandra was advancing at full speed. But if she continued at this pace, Schwein would go berserk and start a counterattack. Xion wondered what Cassandra would do. Schwein said that she was beautiful. If she were his kind, he would marry her. Cassandra replied that she did not understand what he was saying, but she was having a lot of fun too. Cassandra attacked from above, and Schwein blocked. Schwein kicked the sword. Cassandra stood in a defensive pose. Schwein asked not to think that he was the same as before. He rushed into a manual attack and wanted to hit Cassandra, but she foresaw this and managed to dodge. Schwein did not lose his head and rushed into battle again, but Cassandra foresaw this too and struck him from below in the face, so that Schwein fell on his back. She asked that if she did not inflict mortal wounds on him, but simply knocked him out, that would not make him berserker, would it? Schwein was unconscious. Cassandra said that victory was hers. Schwein came to his senses and said that he lost. It was a complete defeat. But he fought well, there was no doubt about it. Cassandra asked Xion to translate everything. The protagonist agreed. Then MC asked Schwein why he did not wait until all the wounds healed. Schwein was surprised. What is the protagonist interested in this? Schwein's arm had recently been completely cut off. It would be natural to ask to wait until everything was completely restored. Schwein asked to kill him quickly. If they refused, he would attack every person who came here. He asked the adventurers, they don't want that, do they? Lime turned to Xion with a request. The protagonist replied that he thought the same. Xion told Schwein that if he promised not to attack people, he would think of something. Schwein replied that it was impossible. He had already said that he lived to fight strong opponents, and he was not going to give up so easily. Xion thought, if they don't leave him here, maybe they could agree on cooperation. He asked about Schwein wanting to challenge the strong. But they don't have to be people, do they? Schwein replied that it was, but only people go into the dungeon. Xion replied that it was only while he was in the cave. The protagonist offered to go with them. Schwein was surprised. Xion said that they were third level from the top. They were adventurers fighting for a high position in the rankings. They went on errands to all sorts of places, and there they could meet opponents much stronger than him or Cassandra. Schwein asked if they would be okay with him being a different species. Xion replied that if it bothered Schwein, he asked to look at Lime. He didn't care, and it didn't bother him. Many adventurers had seen his fight with the previous boss, and no one had a bad opinion of him. Schwein replied that it was clear to him now. He asked about his friends taking him outside. Xion extended his hand in response and said that the outside world was a lot of fun. They shook hands. Somewhere in the city. Xion was standing in the square by the fountain. Angelina said that he had arrived early and seemed surprised. The protagonist asked if she was still working. Angelina replied that a colleague had replaced her. The protagonist told Angelina that the outfit suited her, and he thought that an aristocrat had approached him. Angelina noticed that it had been a long time since they had seen each other outside of work. Xion said that she always seemed very busy. Angelina said that the protagonist had also been working hard since joining the ranks of adventurers. Hadn't that been the case? Xion said that it led him to where he was now. It was all thanks to her instructions and that person. Xion said that that person brought back memories. Angelina said that if she thought about it, they often went out together. She said that she wanted to go to a certain store today. The protagonist said that he had thought about it too. He offered to go together and pointed in the direction. Everything would have been fine if it weren't for that person, the time when the three of them had just become adventurers. Angelina asked about them catching a unicorn rabbit. In front of her stood the Argonauts' Golden Fleece search party, E rank. Jason replied that the rabbit was fast, but it was easy for him. He asked for something more difficult next time. Ace said that Jason was too loud and rude to the staff. Shion tried to stop them and said that it was Miss Angelina. He politely asked if they could buy the materials from the rabbit. Angelina agreed. She said that after the guild cuts up the rabbit, they will give them a reward. Shion replied that they will wait. The girl who was standing behind Angelina said that the guys are talented, but they will be a lot of trouble. Angelina turned around in fear and called the girl Jessica. She asked her if she really was standing there all this time. Jessica called her an ice cube. She said that she was just worried about her hardworking and serious colleague. She tried to massage Angelina's shoulders. She shrank and asked to stop, otherwise she would get angry. Jessica handed her the drink, apologized, and said it was an apology. It was a new product that had proven itself as a remedy for fatigue. Angelina asked, "Is it herbal tea?" But it had an unusual smell, and she agreed to try it. She said that something was bothering her. She understood why the hero and the goddess of medicine became adventurers, but what was Shion the translator doing there? After all, he received a gift that was not at all suitable for an adventurer. Why did he decide to team up with them? Jessica answered clearly and suggested that Angelina ask him herself. Shion intervened in the conversation and asked if he was disturbing. Angelina asked how she could help him. Shion replied that he wanted to show her something. He put a mushroom, a plant with roots, and a stone on the counter. Jessica and Angelina were surprised. Jessica, examining it through a magnifying glass, said that these were quite rare items that could not always be found even during collection quests. She asked Shion where he got it. The protagonist replied that he did not steal it from anyone. As members of the guild, they know about his gift, right? His friends among the beasts told him. Jessica answered that it was very convenient, but that was also problematic. Shion answered sadly that just being able to talk to them was nothing. But, in any case, he had to rely on himself. He wanted to sell these things to pay for the training course. Jessica asked if he needed these courses. He had already found such materials, and his squad had only completed the first assignment. Isn't that a good start? Shion answered that he really needed to train. He realized this during the assignment. To be on par with his two friends, he needed to become stronger. But he couldn't fight like Jason. He couldn't provide the necessary support like Ace. Therefore, he needed more knowledge to help in any way. He wanted to match his friends. He begged to buy these things. Jessica said that she liked everything. There was something about such stubborn people. She asked if he could talk to monsters. Shion answered only if they themselves wanted and were capable of it. Jessica told Angelina that the boy was problematic. Angelina asked what Jessica meant. She replied that it was a rather dangerous way of gathering information. For example, what if others saw an adventurer talking to a monster in a cave? Angelina agreed that it would be strange, and they might mistake him for an enemy. Jessica said that if Shion used his gift carelessly outside, his own comrades might attack him. Shion asked what he should do. Jessica asked to listen to her. All he needed now a good reputation and earn people's trust in order to make as many connections as possible. Angelina said that there were no special missions now, and what could a newbie do anyway? Jessica said there was one thing. Angelina begged not to tell him anything. Jessica said that adventures, the guild, the city, and she and Angelina would tell him everything. Jessica offered to become the guild's mentor, or rather, its assistant. Jessica is the adventurer's mentor, a C-rank loner. She asked him what he would say to such a proposal. The protagonist shouted that he agreed. He asked permission to help. From that day on, he worked all day long. When the Argonauts had no assignments, he followed Jessica everywhere. She was diligent and taught him a lot. Perhaps because she was a loner, she had a lot of connections. A year passed, and the squad was promoted. Shion's reputation increased greatly. Jason was happy that the squad was promoted to D rank. It took longer than he thought, but with his strength and that sword, he would quickly reach A rank. Jason said that Shion should stop hanging out with weaklings and start training. Shion replied that without his connections, they would have failed, and there would be no sword, so he was useful too. Ace said that Shion had grown a lot. More work and more problems, but she respected him for it. Jason shouted that he had heard information that a member of Angelina's team had died. Shion told him that was enough. With increasing rank comes greater responsibility, so dangerous incidents happen more often. Even they could be killed if they weren't careful. Jason said that there was no way he would expose himself. Shion turned around and left. Jason shouted after him, asking where he was going, but Shion waved his hand and replied that he had a meeting starting. Somewhere in a tavern. Shion was sitting at the bar and putting his head on the table, starting to fall asleep. He didn't understand why he was falling asleep. After all, Jessica had invited him to drink. Maybe alcohol had an effect like that? Through his sleep, he heard a conversation between Angelina and Jessica. Jessica apologized to Angelina for what happened. MC didn't understand what they were talking about. Angelina said that they were a D-rank team and spoke so admiringly that from now on they would learn even more. Jessica patted Angelina on the shoulder and said that it was not her fault and that she shouldn't worry so much. Angelina replied that she didn't want to see anyone die anymore. Jessica asked if Angelina could quit her job then. But Angelina replied that she couldn't do that. She loved her job and the people who relied on her. Jessica said that her business had saved so many people, so it would be a shame if she quit. Angelina begged Jessica not to die. Jessica replied that she would. She had already saved up the money she wanted, so she would soon open her own business and quit. She didn't want to be killed at all. Angelina replied that it was great and that she and Xion would be the first customers. Jessica did quit soon, and the protagonist, having risen in the ranks as a loner, took her place to train newcomers. Xion was busy and they rarely got together, since Angelina had also been promoted. Day after day, they disappeared into business. After some time, the protagonist had a premonition that something would happen. Xion called out to Pollux. She said that Miss Jessica was brought in seriously injured. The guild was very noisy. Xion ran to the guild. Angelina was standing with a confused face. Someone shouted that there was an urgent patient and asked to let them through. Someone told Angelina not to look at this. The injured Jessica was carried away on a stretcher. Xion found Angelina in the tavern. He said that he heard about what happened in the guild and hoped to find her here. Angelina replied that she was fine and asked the protagonist to go home. Xion said that he could not leave her like this and could listen to her as much as he wanted. Angelina rudely asked him to shut up and repeated that she was fine. She shouted that Xion would die too. She asked him not to be so affectionate with her and not to come closer. The protagonist said that he would not die. Angelina called him a liar. All of Lav's friends, Hayes, Yuna, said the same thing and died. Even Jessica, who said that she would be alive, could die. Angelina sat down on the floor and lowered her head. Xion said that he definitely would not die. He had the experience and knowledge that they gave him. He asked her to trust him. Angelina cried and said that it was hard to watch her charges die. Each of them risked their lives, and the secretaries could only pray. Angelina only sent adventurers on proven quests. Therefore, they can go on a mission with peace of mind. And when it hurts and is scary, you can remember her smile and strength immediately appears. Xion begged Angelina not to talk as if she could not do anything. Angelina cried even more and buried her face in the protagonist's chest. Jessica said that at that time she definitely thought that she was dying. She added that it was not right to say that someone would never die. Xion hung his head and said that he was very ashamed. Angelina said that she was glad that Jessica was okay. Jessica smiled and said that she had promised. Her days as an adventurer were over. She opened her own place, just like she wanted. So, she was very happy with her second life. It was quite a popular place with girls. She whispered to Xion that his friends were sitting at the table. Xion turned around and saw Cassandra, Schween, and Lime. Cassandra said that it was a coincidence. They came in and saw the two of them. She was afraid to disturb them if she butted in. Xion and Angelina exchanged glances. The protagonist asked Jessica if they could order something to eat. Jessica said that Xion had grown a lot. She would bring everything, and the friends could take seats on the terrace. The MC thanked Jessica. He called his friends to the terrace. Xion suggested celebrating the success of their special mission. They all sat together on the terrace, eating and drinking. Jessica asked about Xion getting his own partners. They looked good. Angelina replied that she was also surprised by the monster companions, even with the mission achievements. It was surprising that the management approved it, but it was difficult. Jessica asked if Xion had chosen a name for the team. The protagonist replied that he had not thought of one yet. Jessica suggested Legion. Xion said that it sounded good and asked his friends what they thought about it. Cassandra thought about it. Lime replied that it was a normal name. Schwein said that he did not really understand, but it sounded cool. Xion replied that it was decided. From today on, they were Legion. Xion looked at the moon above the night city and thought that his friends needed to find a place to stay for the night. He noticed someone standing in front of his house. Who could it be? A mouse running past said that she had been standing there since sunset. The protagonist thanked the mouse for the unexpected help. Xion thought that the staff was familiar to him. He came closer and asked the stranger if her name was Asu. The stranger turned around and took off her hood. The moon illuminated her face and Xion saw Asu. She called him a fool and said that she had actually been waiting for him. Did he know? The protagonist couldn't believe his eyes. It was Asu. She asked him if it was true that he had left the Argonauts. Xion replied that he thought she knew. Asu rushed to hug him. She sniffed him and said he smelled like another woman. Asu asked what that meant. Xion replied that what was more important now was what she was doing near his house. Asu said she came because she had a favor to ask of him. The protagonist asked him. Asu said she wanted him to go with her to the Gorgon village. Shion was shocked. They went into the house and the protagonist said he would make tea. The Argonauts squad, the search for the golden fleece, the child of the god of medicine, Asclepius. Shion wondered if Asu had agreed to his exclusion from the squad, and now she had a favor to ask. He handed her a cup of tea and warned her that it was hot. Asu asked what happened while she was away. She asked him to tell her everything. Shion asked about her not talking to Iason. He told Asu everything that had happened during that time and that he had created his own team. Asu asked if Shion understood why she was angry. The protagonist asked if he should understand. He apologized and said that he did not understand her. Asu asked if the protagonist had spoken well to Iason. After all, the three of them were going to become heroes, weren't they? She said that Jason wouldn't have kicked him out seriously. Shion said that Jason didn't think he was strong enough. Asu said that Shion was focusing on supporting him, not on becoming stronger. Jason can't talk with his mouth at all, so he kicked him out for show. Medea, who had been bothering Jason while Asu was gone, clearly said that they needed to test the protagonist to see if he was worthy of being an Argonaut. She asked if he didn't know anything about his childhood friend. Shion said that after Asu's story, he remembered that Jason had been annoying lately. But even if that was true, there were still things worth saying. Asu said that she was angry not only at the protagonist and Jason, but also at herself for not noticing how much he had been suffering all this time. She bowed and said that even though they were childhood friends, she was very sorry. She asked if he could return to the Argonauts. Shion apologized to her and said he had no desire to go back. Asu took a stand and said that this didn't work either, but there was no need to worry, she would get it back on both of them. Asu said that there was a more important matter that interested her. She asked what kind of person Cassandra was. Shion said that she was good, a little shy, but very capable. Overall, she was amazing. Asu said, that's it. Now she understood very well how careless she had been, but enemies like Angelina and Pollux were always around. She thought about whether she could entrust Shion and the others with a task. She said that she needed a B rank or higher team that could be trusted, since the task was difficult. Shion agreed and said that they didn't have any tasks yet. He asked if she would wait until he discussed it with the others. Asu said that she would wait and thanked him. And in her head, she had the thought that they would be together again. It was deep in the night. Asu said that she talked a lot and was tired. She thanked him for the tea and suggested going to the guild together tomorrow. Shion agreed. Asu said that it was time to sleep and started to undress. The protagonist covered his face with his hands and shouted that this was his room. Asu said that they always slept together and now she did not mind. Shion replied that they were children back then. Asu lay down in his bed and wished him good night. Shion was indignant that they did not finish the conversation. She asked if he really wanted to throw her, a homeless woman, out the door in the middle of the night. She called the protagonist cruel and covered herself with a blanket. MC exhaled and calmed himself down, that it was only for one night. Asu spoke from under the blanket. She knew that he would be kind to her. He adjusted the blanket and wished her good night and got ready. Asu grabbed his hand and asked him not to leave. Shion thought that after returning from the trip, she found the team incomplete. One of her childhood friends disappeared. Another created another team. She was all alone in the city. Shion held her hand and said that everything was fine, he was here. Morning came. Shion was sleeping, sitting on the floor, leaning on the bed. He woke up from the smell. Shion went down the stairs and wished good morning. Asu also wished good morning. She said that she made breakfast. Troll meat with medicinal herbs helps to restore strength. Shion asked about this new recipe. Asu asked him about how he looked embarrassed and that it bothered her. The protagonist replied that he was simply remembering the past, after which he began to eat breakfast. MC said that troll meat tasted like pork. Quite delicious. Asu asked, is it really delicious? It is her masterpiece. Shion thanked for breakfast and said that it was delicious and filling. He asked if this was a direct request to the squad. Was it something personal? Asu replied that she had learned something while on her journey about the materials needed for her goal of creating a panacea. Asu said that she wanted to borrow Shion and the others' strength. At the guild, Shion told the squad everything and asked what they thought about it. Schwein clarified that it was a difficult task and strong opponents. Lime said that he was hoping for an easy job. Cassandra asked if it was normal for Shion to receive a task from a team that expelled him. Asu frowned and said that it was her personal request. Besides, if she were around, no one would expel him. Sparks of hatred for each other flashed between the girls. Shion tried to stop them and calm them down. He said that they were all in the guild. Asu said that Shion was right. Did Angelina see Asu? She decided that she could be trusted as an employer. Cassandra thought about it. Asu said that she would pay half in advance and provide the necessary resources for the journey. Angelina said that she would guarantee that all conditions would be met. Xion asked Cassandra what she thought about it. Cassandra smiled and said that they should accept the request. She introduced herself as Cassandra and said it was nice to meet her. She added that they were partners, which meant they would get through it. She asked Lime and Schwein how they were. They both agreed. Cassandra extended her hand to Isu and said that Xion would go even if they all refused. Schwein and Lime introduced themselves. Angelina offered to make a contract. This voice reminded Asu of something. They were walking around the city and preparing for the journey. Schwein was in the weapons shop, choosing a new weapon. Xion and Lime were sitting and studying a book. Angelina noticed something catching Xion's eye. The protagonist pointed to a monster created by demons. Even Mithril couldn't take it. Angelina said that this was the last entry about the destination. But the notes were old. Maybe she was worrying for nothing. She said that this monster could be A rank. Xion easily answered that that was why Asu had asked them for help. But now he had reliable companions. They would definitely return safe and sound. In the morning, Asu arrived on a large cart. She apologized for waiting in front of the Legion. Cassandra asked Asu if this was her cart. Asu said that she often traveled to hard-to-reach regions. Xion said that Asu earned money on the side. He offered to take the reins into his own hands. And Cassandra and Schwein would keep both eyes open for the situation around them. They went, heading for the Gorgon village. Xion suggested that the girls rest inside. Cassandra replied that Lady Asclepius could go and rest. And Asu said that it was not difficult for her and that Cassandra should rest. Only Schwein was lying on the roof and resting. Xion suggested not to quarrel on the way. On the way, they got caught in a heavy rain and the cart got stuck in the mud. While they were trying to push it out, everyone got dirty. The girls decided to swim naked under the waterfall. Later, they both rode inside the cart. Cassandra opened the curtain and said that the forest was getting thicker. Xion replied that they were almost at the village where they planned to spend the night. He said that if things went as smoothly, they would soon be there. Schwein said from above that they had guests. They were weak in smell, but it would be fun. Mushrooms appeared from behind the trees. They began to surround the cart. Schwein shouted that it was a crowd of Matango. Xion said that they did not want to fight, and asked to just let them through. In response, he heard incomprehensible words, like a set of letters. He told his comrades that he could not talk to them. These mushrooms are acting strangely. Schwein asked to leave this fight to him. Xion warned about dangerous poison. Schwein shouted, "Let's get started." Cassandra said that they would protect the carriage and asked to leave it to her. She lit the sphere and a protective field formed around the carriage and a wall of fire along the edge. Asu was surprised. Xion said that Cassandra was amazing and Schwein's power was amazing. It was like a black whirlwind. Cassandra said that there were too many mushrooms and asked Xion what they would do. Xion noticed that something was growing very quickly from the ground. He warned Schwein. The friends did not understand what was happening. The killed monsters began to unite into one big mushroom, which released poisonous gas. Xion used the wind to avoid breathing this gas. He said that they can't just ignore it. He called for an end to it. Cassandra agreed but asked a question. How? If she breaks through, the entire forest will burn along with the monster. Xion looked at the enemy and thought that the mushroom was gigantic, but it must have a vulnerability. It was necessary to find it. Asu approached Schwein and asked if it needed to be cured. He replied that not now. Xion called Schwein and Asu and said that he needed their help. He noticed that the mushroom's hand was absorbing power from the ground. Asu and Cassandra circled the monster. Xion said that the mushroom was absorbing power very quickly. Xion ordered Cassandra to distract the monster until it gave her a signal. He told Schwein and Asu about the plan. Cassandra circled the monster. Xion asked to borrow Asu's power. Asu transferred power through her staff. Schwein said that this power was literally bursting through him. The protagonist said that everything was going well. Schwein asked to tell him when he would be ready for the attack. Xion grabbed the sword and said that he would tear this monster to pieces. Cassandra distracted the attention by jumping high in place. The monster roared something. At that moment, Xion prepared to attack. The monster began to stretch its arms towards the protagonist to grab him. At that moment, Schwein attacked the monster with all his might. He made a huge hole in it. Asu was surprised that he could do that with one blow. She asked, "Did they win?" Xion shouted that they hadn't yet. The monster was still alive. The monster started growing tendrils and was reaching out to grab Schwein. A soft voice came from the mushroom, saying "stupid meat." Flying past the monster, Schwein threw his sword right into the center of the mushroom. The mushroom caught Schwein and attached him to a huge tree like a web. Schwein tried to get out on his own, but he couldn't. Xion shouted that he would save him. Cassandra stopped the protagonist and pointed to the mushroom, that in the very middle of it there was a sword. Xion shouted that they did it. Cassandra jumped up and freed Schwein. Xion said that it all happened in seconds. Schwein said that he threw the sword with a loud cry and was lucky to hit the very middle. Cassandra said that it was a good hit. Someone asked what they were going to do with the monster. Shion asked if they could just leave it there. Cassandra said she had an idea. It was a good job. Anyone could do it. Asu said she had prepared some food and called everyone to the table. She handed a bowl of stew to Shion and said it was time for a new masterpiece. The protagonist replied that he couldn't wait to try it. All the friends looked into the pot and wondered what the food was made of. Schwein asked if it was a mushroom. Cassandra asked if it was safe. Shion suggested trying it. Schwein looked at the stew and fried mushrooms on a stick with distrust. Cassandra was afraid to try it. Lime said it was delicious, he would eat nothing but that. Cassandra said it annoyed her, but she agreed it was delicious. She asked how Asu could cook like that. Shion replied that Asu had a gift that allowed her to see the effects of materials and perform detoxification. Asu said that Shion had changed a lot. Cassandra asked if Asu really thought so. Asu said that during their journey, she suddenly thought that he hadn't fought like this in their party. Perhaps it was because of his comrades. Shion said that he realized that he had potential. Asu said that it was a little frustrating. Shion asked again what she said, but Asu didn't answer. Shion suggested that they rest and prepare for tomorrow. Suddenly, he heard a song. Was it the sound of a nearby settlement? Asu asked, so late at night, who could it be? Shion suggested that he and Cassandra go and check everything out. Asu asked not to take any risks and return immediately. The protagonist and Cassandra were walking through a dense forest. Shion pointed to the side and said that there seemed to be an open area. Cassandra agreed and said that the song was coming from there. They crept up quietly and sat in ambush. A girl was standing in a clearing and singing, looking at the moon. The protagonist was surprised. A girl? Such a beautiful voice. Cassandra confirmed, yeah, and the air around seemed to sparkle. The protagonist had a strange feeling of the voice. The girl stopped singing and asked who was there. Cassandra was surprised and asked, had they been noticed? But a man came out of the bushes and laughed. He said she even felt his presence. A beautiful creature. This is definitely the power of love. Cassandra was surprised. Was there someone else here? The girl answered the guy who came out. She just knew it was him, Perseus. She said that eavesdropping does not appeal to her. Perseus called her his songbird and said that she was wonderful, as always. He sat down on one knee in front of her. The girl replied that she had already told him. She hates him. She was very scared. The girl asked why he was here. Perseus replied that of course it was because of her eyes, shining like the stars, her hair like the dawn sun, and her such cute fangs. He said how could he not miss the beauty of his princess? He asked what was wrong, princess? She was scared. The other members of the group snuck up on the protagonist and Cassandra. Were those two singing? Shion replied that they had heard about the princess and the knight. Maybe there was some kind of secret meeting here. Cassandra disagreed with him. She didn't think they had such a fairy tale relationship. They had been arguing from the very beginning. The girl was angry with him. He had come again. She demanded that he go home and called him a stalker. The guy felt the presence of more people and said, by the way, he didn't know who they were, but eavesdropping was indecent. And he asked them to leave. The protagonist and company had no choice but to leave. He apologized and said that they couldn't pass by such a wonderful singing, so they stopped. Perseus answered, a good explanation, but who are they? Why are they here? MC said that they are adventurers on a mission from Corinth, looking for ingredients for a new potion. The guy was surprised that they came from such distant lands. He hoped that they would find what they were looking for. Asu asked to let her explain herself. She said that her name is Asclepius. She is from the Panacea group. She studies and creates medicines. She came here for a certain rare material. Perseus said that the symbol she had he saw in the city. The protagonist turned to Asu. Is everything okay? He thought it would be better to tell these people. Asu said, it's about the blood of a monster called a Gorgon. Perseus was surprised. What did she just say? The singing girl tensed up. Gorgon's blood, you say?